I think complex structure points to the existence of God and gives some clues as to what God might be like. Hi, I'm Marcus and I've written a short chapter about complex structure in my book The God Puzzle. I've also made it into an animated video, but here I want to share a few more thoughts. The universe seems to be moving towards a less and less ordered state, but as it does so, incredible structures are materializing on the chaotic border between order and uniformity. I love the way smoke swirls above a snuffed out candle flame in a hypnotic hierarchy of eddies. On a larger scale, the universe likewise manifests swirling galaxies as it winds down, and in at least one of those galaxies there is a planet, our home, sailing serenely through the vast emptiness of space, upon which a myriad of living creatures twirl energy round and round in the circle of life. Eventually, so the science goes, it will all dissipate into uninteresting uniformity. But right now, are you not surprised and in awe of the complex structures appearing all around us? Wolves and whales, walruses and wasps, wheat and walnuts, Winston Churchill and William Shakespeare, watches and Washington, Tolstoy's War and Peace and Monet's water lilies, and that's just a few of the W's. The theory of evolution has sometimes been seen as an explanation of the living complexity we see, dispelling the illusion of design, making it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled atheist. But that's just misdirection, focusing our attention away from the complexity of the evolutionary mechanism itself. Don't let scientific descriptions and theories dull your wonder at the extraordinary structures in our world. Rather, let it increase as every new discovery maps out more of our world's mysteriously deep structure and gives us fresh cause to consider its origin. The more we zoom in and zoom out, the more structure and complexity we see, and the greater the sense of wonder we should feel as the more pressing the impression of design becomes. Science is a bit like brass rubbing. When a piece of paper is put over the coin itself is hidden. You might be able to feel that there is something bumpy underneath it, but when you take a crayon and begin to rub it back and forth over the surface of the paper, lo and behold, as you do, more and more complex structure materializes. Science brings the majestic, multi-layered complexity of our world into sharper relief. In candid conversation with Douglas Wilson, the late Christopher Hitchens confided that the one argument that made him and his fellow atheists stop and think was the argument from fine-tuning. He said, "The fine-tuning argument, we all agree, is the most intriguing. It is not trivial, we all say that." Physicists tell us that the constants in the equations that describe our universe are balanced on a knife edge such that a fraction of a billionth of a percent more or less and life could not exist. The physicist Roger Penrose claimed that in order to produce a universe even remotely like ours, its initial conditions must have been what they are to a precision of 10 to the 10 to the 123. That's many times more than all the atoms in the universe. The anthropic principle pipes up that if the settings were not what they are, we would not be around to wonder at it. But it still seems unlikely enough that people posit an infinite number of universes, each with different settings for the constants and perhaps different constants altogether. It seems to me, though, that once we get into the realm of infinite, invisible, unknowable universes, we should perhaps be more willing to put God back on the table. In dialogue with the biologist Richard Dawkins, Francis Collins, head of the Human Genome Project and acting science advisor to the President of the United States, said this: "I'm arguing not that the evolutionary process is incapable of creating complexity. I think it totally is. You and I are in the same place here. But you say it happened because of the laws of physics. I want to take this back to that step. Where did those come from?" Dawkins' reply might surprise you. He said, "That is very profound. If someone was going to convince me of the need for a God, it would be there. Not in my own field of biology. The physical constants, things like the speed of light, the gravitational constant, and the strong and weak force, and things like that, most physicists agree that if you change any of those constants, even by a very small amount, then we don't come into existence. The universe doesn't come into existence. They have to be like that in order for galaxies to form, for stars to form, for chemistry to form actually, and then the prerequisite for life to evolve needs that as well. So that's the nearest approach to a good argument. When you get to the origin of the physical constants, that's getting warm. That's getting close to a good argument. Now, Dawkins is quick to clarify that even if he might just possibly be persuaded to be a deist, that would still be a long way from Christianity. For that, he'd require proof of the resurrection. He says, you've got to produce a really good argument for Jesus, and he's right. In this God puzzle, I'm suggesting that complex structures like living organisms point to God, revealing something of his power and creativity, but they do not tell us anything directly about Jesus. I expect you will need to think about some of the other God puzzle pieces and study the Bible and history a little bit more if you are to move from a deist to a Christian. The argument from fine-tuning is a good one, but one reason I didn't put it front and centre as a God puzzle piece was that I have no immediate experience of the physics and mathematics that require such precise values. Most of us simply have to take it on trust that they appear so finely tuned to physicists. It's an argument from authority, and as such I don't feel it as strongly as those from my personal experience, like the reality of morality or the existential force of my own consciousness. So my main focus here is on the experience of looking around and seeing so much complex structure. Intuitively, it seems really bizarre that the universe is arranged as interestingly as it is, and the richness of its arrangement cries out to me for an explanation. Science may put numbers on it and make it more measurable, but I think you can feel the force of it without the physics. While life stands out as particularly complex and has always been something of a poster child for complexity, looking closely at something as simple as a snowflake can also provoke awe and wonder. Each one of the billions that float down to us is a unique masterpiece, manifesting in miniature a crystalline creativity from above. As Dr. Ken Lebrecht, the world expert on snowflakes and special advisor to the Disney film Frozen, put it, there is just a cacophony of different shapes. All of these appear spontaneously. There's no DNA or any kind of blueprint for what's going on. It's just water vapour freezing into ice, and all this happens. It's amazing. There's all these little works of art just falling out of the sky. Viewed up close under the microscope, it's not just their shape that is spellbinding. It's the way their transparent symmetry is flooded with rainbows of refracted light. It's utterly mesmerising. But maybe I'm straying into the beauty God puzzle piece. My main point here is that the world seems set up such that at every scale, complex structures are constantly manifesting and melting, appearing and receding. I did struggle a bit with the terminology for this piece. Complexity, order, structure, information, entropy and so on all have rather precise meanings in different fields, but hopefully you can see past any sloppiness in my language to comprehend what I'm trying to say. For the record, by the way, I do recognise that ordered systems can transition to disorder through complexity, like milk being poured into a cup of coffee. But that does not stop me wondering at the rich complexity that I see all around me. Not just eddies, but elephants. Not just swirls, but swans. And more than that, like Francis Collins and Richard Dawkins, I wonder how and why this whole system was set up in the first place. It's not just that something exists, it's that such a currently rich and complex something exists. And I think it's this that the fine-tuning argument points to and puts numbers to the vanishingly small improbability of. I'm fascinated by our creative urge and ability. We incessantly shape and order the world around us, sometimes for utility, but often for the sheer joy of it. For some, the desire to create is so strong it's almost like the desire for air, only instead of breathing in oxygen, we exhale creation. Whether it's through paint or code or equations or words or movement or sound or wood or whatever it is, we human beings are compelled to conduct complex structures into being all around us. But where does our creativity come from? I know evolution eagerly thrusts its hand in the air, squealing, pick me, and perhaps it is a partial answer, but could our creative urge also be an echo, an image, an impression of our Creator, and so point us to Him? Just like love and beauty, there is something transcendent about creativity. The experience of it, a vision worked into existence or discovered and then delighted in. This is more than molecules moving about. I'm really enjoying bringing these God puzzle pieces into being. Hopefully they are helpful in some way, but it's just so satisfying turning a thought into something tangible, making a vision visible. Now, I'm resigned to the fact that many watching this won't relate at all to what I'm saying here, but some will, and maybe some of the some will join the same dots as me and see that creativity isn't just the turbulence of a universe winding down, it's the breath of God materializing his masterpiece. The Bible starts with God commanding a glorious order to come forth from chaos. I think our second order derivative creativity points to his and lets us share in the joy of declaring, "Let there be." Going back to my main point though, if the existence of something rather than nothing points us to God, as I think it does, then the amazing complex structure of what exists also points to God and his incredible creativity. It has been argued in the past that when we see a watch, we should infer a watchmaker. After all, the thing didn't design and build itself. Evolution may now explain something of the appearance of design when we see a flower, but the flower is just a tiny cog in a universe-sized watch, a small swirl in a giant coffee cup. The question is not just who poured in the milk, but who imagined and implemented a world in which such things exist at all. Albert Einstein said, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle." To me, the more I look, the more the whole space-time universe and everything in it looks like a massive miracle of design. Who brought it into being and set it up such that right now we see so much incredible structure? I think we should at least consider looking beyond it for a grand designer. As Terry Pratchett wrote in his novel Small Gods, humans, they lived in a world where the grass continued to be green and the sun rose every day and flowers regularly turned into fruit. And what impressed them? Weeping statues. And wine made out of water, a mere quantum mechanistic tunnel effect that had happened anyway if you were prepared to wait zillions of years. As if the turning of sunlight into wine by means of vines and grapes and thyme and enzymes wasn't 1,000 times more impressive and happened all the time. Just because you can explain it doesn't mean it's not still a miracle. Now, I happen to believe that miracles are meant to amaze us. They are signs pointing us beyond the everyday working of our world to what or who is behind it. Perhaps they are needed partly because we have become so accustomed to the miracle of order manifesting around us all the time. Our wonder has waned at how amazing this world is, but maybe if you look at it again, whether on a woodland walk or in a science laboratory, you will discern God's fingerprints in its surprising structure and creative complexity.